Good morning, ladies and gents. So, today is kind of two parts. One is show off progress we made yesterday, and then also show off some extra work I did after the stream. And part two is to kind of show off that with good architecture, we can do things in a nice, clean way without requiring a ton of extra code. And finally, after that, I know I have NPC encounter as my task for the day. I do want to get started on that. Alternatively, I'm kind of tempted to start in on something along the lines of a like a descriptive text moment where the player is walking along and then they hit a moment where text comes up. It describes something that's happening in the game that I may not be able to portray through my 3D assets that I have in screen. So it's definitely on the list of things to think about and work with today. So the first thing to note is that I got the metal border all fixed up. I don't think this is going to be my final design in any way, shape, or form, mostly because it doesn't quite fit the mood for the game, but it uses the same art style and it has some of the same texturing that I want. Whoop. So it does fit enough that I don't want to mess with it. Also, I can't help but notice that my my party view looks a little stretched. I'm just going to double check something really quickly. So our game camera, let's see here. So the party UI, the view is a box that is roughly, it's probably, let's see, 1280 minus about 450. So that's about 800-ish, maybe a little over 800 in width. And then it looks like 720 becomes, so it's about 800 by 500. So we want to make sure that, first off, the render texture is about 800 by 500. And I can't help but notice that it's actually 800 by 600. Although making it not quite as wide doesn't seem to be gaining me a ton in that department. It might be that the texture itself is squished a little. Let's think. It's actually been a while since I played with this party view, so I need to remember not only what I did to get it working, but also the bits and pieces that make it up. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it just has entirely to do with this set of settings here. So let's try making it a little wider. See how that looks in comparison. Come on, monsters. That looks better. That looks a lot better. Good, okay. Just wanted to make sure that was kind of kosher before we moved on. Alright, let's see. So we've got... Where was I? So, okay, yeah, new border. It's okay. It looks decent. I won't say it looks great. And I put some descriptive text here, so when stuff happens, the text goes here. And I can even split it up into a few lines, do that kind of thing. I also can't help but notice that the description text has an alpha in the outline, and I don't want that at all. Yeah, that looks better. Kind of want to make that text larger as well, but at the same time, it's actually kind of hard to tell if it's the right size or not. Let's get into a fight. Actually, no, I don't have to get into a fight, because the other thing I finished last night, and this is kind of an ooh and ah moment for me. You click on the spell. Let's say I want to cast Firebolt on my friendly warrior, because I know he'll survive it. So, hey, you know the text is popping down here. He takes some damage. And then I can do stuff like cast Heal Wounds on him repeatedly afterwards. I also can't help but notice that my outline is a little wishy-washy and doesn't look that great. Probably because it's so far out from the actual text Let's see if that helps. Bringing it in by a pixel should be enough to make it make a little more sense. I spent a lot of time blowing up my own warrior, more than anything else. That looks a lot better. Okay, cool. So now I can cast Heal Wounds. It's a little hard to see because my big face is in the way, but point made. It looks pretty good. And I can keep casting it as long as I have mana, and I always have mana because, surprise, surprise, we haven't implemented spending mana on things yet. Oops. But yeah, and you can get to their inventory and all that good stuff. I still haven't removed the spell pane, but I'm not too worried about that. So, there was a decent amount of progress last night. I was also up till something like 2 in the morning, and then I woke up at 7 in the morning and proceeded to come back and code more. What can I say? I want to get stuff done. I want to get stuff done. I've been just kind of craving a ton of progress on the game, and so that just like needed to happen. I wanted to get that finished. The upside is I removed a bunch of scripts, and I kind of coalesced a bunch of stuff into a lot more generic script stuff. I still have some refactoring to do, but most of it's complete. So that's in pretty good shape. Now, like, bragging aside, we have an NPC encounter to make today. So, NPC encounter part 1, right? We need a monster. He needs text assets so that he can say things and talk. And we need to figure out how we want the talking system to work. Do I want to go full type in what you say? Do I want to do Commander Shepard style radial menus with things to say? Like, I need to think about how I want to handle that, because honestly, there's a lot of stuff going on to games these days when it comes to NPC interactions, and I feel like there's been a lot of NPC interactions that have been incredibly weak lately, and that I'd like to kind of step up, you know, the game and push the bar up a little bit in terms of NPC interactions. And so there's a lot of possibility here in terms of what we can do. So we need to keep the text asset in mind. Not just that, but also the format and all the information that somebody might have that you could ask about. Let's see. Because obviously I don't want to go, like, if it's complete overkill to add an English language parser into this game, then it's probably overkill for me to add an English language parser to the game. It might not be the most prudent feature to cut, but it would be a feature that might take a ton of time, especially if I end up coding it myself. And I don't think there's a good English language parser, especially for Unity, if only because that doesn't tend to be, and I'm just kind of flipping through Unity's stuff real quick, that doesn't tend to be something that that people do anymore. They just don't, right? You don't put an entire parser in. I want to prove my point here in like a minute. Let's see if I can do this. We look up, I don't know, like NPC. We'll see if that brings up any scripts. I'm looking specifically for scripts. So, okay, NPC chat. Sounds good. We've also got, like, there is really, really little here. I see NPC health bars. Oh, look, AI Pro. I don't think that's going to be what we're hunting for here. Here, why don't we try a different keyword? Why don't we try dialogue? Okay, we have a couple dialogue systems. This looks like a dialogue tree system. Okay, we've got kind of the top rated ones here, just to kind of see what we have. And I really don't think I'm going to find anything that is incredibly, you know, mind-blowing in this section. Typing Effects Pro, hey, you know, it's a start, but it's There are certain things that you just kind of want in a dialogue system. And, okay, that's just localization. Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff in here, like, look at this. It's just, here is dialogue, here's answer A, here's answer B. It's like a multiple choice test. And if you come back and you keep saying the same thing over and over, it doesn't feel like a real dialogue system. It doesn't feel like you're actually interacting with that NPC. And given it's really difficult to have something beyond that. Let's see what this one is. This one is same thing, multiple choice, quiz on what do you want to say. And you can see that they go so far as to say, here's a bunch of scripts with the speaker, the audio clip, what triggers it, the actual text that goes on. And while that's more powerful than some of the previous stuff we've seen, you'll note that all of these have the same look and feel, right? And that's just because it's the most common way that you interact with with NPCs. This one has the little arrow. You pick which one you want. Great. Is this one going to be more advanced? No. And you'd think a dating sim game would be a little more advanced in terms of the words you could put into the system. Oh, that's frightening. Okay, no, we're closing that. Hey, more multiple choice. You can kind of see where I'm going with this, hopefully. This one looks a little more exciting in that it's got different conditions, and you can see the threads to their dialogue. Obviously, it's still going to be the same kind of pick one thing to say from the list, but it's at least got some caveats you can add. It looks like conditions to some of these threads, and that's great. But that's what all of these are, and so you kind of have to gauge what the standard for gaming is today, and also what you want in terms of NPC interaction. Do you want that feeling to be a little deeper, or do you not mind your NPC interactions feeling a little, I'll say, empty in comparison to some other games, or having them feeling a little lighter in processing? Because obviously we could go in and have this big in-depth thing with everything from voice controls to NPC interactions and reactions to things, and that might be neat, but that also would probably take years to develop, and you'd need your NPCs to be the center of your game. Otherwise, it kind of falls on its face. So, step one, we've got a scripted fight, and that's a good starting point for some of the stuff that I want to do here. So we're going to make a new script. And we're going to have a scripted NPC. I'm almost tempted to call it an NPC encounter or something, but I'll just scripted NPC. Just because they share so much similarity in terms of how they should work and what they do. Scripted fight says when you step on this node, surprise, surprise, here's the fight, here's the monsters. The NPC I might do a little more with in terms of controls, but for the most part I want it to be similar in that you step on the node and you start interacting with the NPC. Whether the NPC has to turn your way, don't really care. Those are details I can fight with when it comes to the polish and make the game look nicer than a prototypical just purely mechanics game. So here is our scripted fight. I do like what we start with, the fact that it requires the grid node component to be attached to it. Great. And I'm just gonna copy and paste a lot of it, except that instead of spawning a ton of monsters, I actually want to just spawn the NPC. Specifically, I want to say, here's our NPC template, and that's really all there is to it. I'm going to say, instead of begin combat, begin NPC interaction, because we do want to pull up the UI for talking and interacting with this NPC. And that's not going to be a combat UI script. That's probably going to be something else. NPC UI. There we go. It'll probably look something like this. I'm kind of pseudocoding out a bunch of code at once just because I want to make sure, excuse me, I want to make sure that when we handle all of this, in fact, here's the easy thing to do. We just pass that in there. Also, we're not going to destroy this node. So obviously it can't find the NPC UI stuff, and that's fine. Although that is going to be one of the first things we put together. Something you might notice very quickly also is that I moved the party into a singleton. Passing around all the information that lived within a party started to get cumbersome, to the point where it was starting to gum up the architecture. And every once in a while, when you're looking through the web of code and what attaches to what, instead of spending a ton of time to untangle the whole thing and rewrite your architecture, sometimes there's one linchpin holding it all together, and when you pop that pin out, everything just kind of falls into place. For me, that linchpin was the fact that I was trying to grab the party object and pass it around to everybody who needed a copy. It turns out there's a lot of people who need a copy of the party reference. And so instead of passing it around and keeping tons of extra copies and having all this like unnecessary extra data floating around, instead I just moved it into a singleton, because a couple things are always true. While the game state is running, we pretty much always want to have a party loaded in, right? That's just kind of a given. The party should pretty much always exist, except when we're in certain menu states. So having it inside a singleton makes some sense. The other thing that makes it make a lot of sense is the fact that there will only ever be a single party loaded in. You can never have more than one party. If you do, something's horribly wrong. And so having multiple parties isn't really a possibility, nor is it something I want to look into for this game. So for now, party being a singleton is great, because now it ensures that I only ever have one, right? Part of the singleton pattern. Finally, it's a big space saver. Everybody who needs any kind of information inside of the party can grab a reference to the party and then proceed to use all the information in it. And the party is a plethora of information. If we look at the actual class itself and ignore the movement and rotation and some of the other stuff, it's got a ton of actual party variables in here. How much money does the party have? Where's the party's UI root start? What are the characters in the party? And then also the ability to control the player's movement is key here. The ability to say, okay, when you're casting spells, when you're inside combat, all of these things need to tell the party stop moving if the player keeps pressing keys, because we don't want a party that's able to walk around and just like walk away from a turn-based fight. That makes no sense. So having more things be able to access that input enabled Boolean makes a lot of sense for us, while still keeping our architecture somewhat clean, because singletons do have their upsides. Anyway, just saying. We've got, okay, so first things first. In terms of prefabs, we need something akin to the combat UI. Obviously, we don't want the combat UI itself, but if I were to do something like grab this and tell it break the prefab instance, and maybe we'll start calling it the NPC UI, right? Simple, basic thing to do. I'm going to rip the combat UI component off of it, and I'm going to take a bunch of these buttons from the various pickers and remove those as well. Actually, so the item picker I do kind of want to remove. The spell picker not so much. The spell and target picker I actually might need. If you want to cast something on an NPC, this would be the way to do it. So maybe I'll keep those for now. An action header, that actually makes some sense. Also, having our action background with the choices that we can make makes some sense. Obviously, we don't want the attack subtypes. We don't really need those buttons. Nor do we need pretty much any of the... let's see. What do we have? When you talk or interact with an NPC, you can attack the NPC. That is a possibility. I'm going to actually shift that to where the rest button is, just so players don't accidentally attack and kill too many NPCs. A spell button, sure. I'm going to swap the equip button with a trade, right? That's something we want to do. And run is going to turn into leave. What else? Actually, the item I think is going to turn into our trade button. Give. Being able to transfer something from your inventory into the NPCs is definitely something that will either affect your reputation with them or could complete quests, right? You say, give this item, all done. And obviously we want to be able to talk, right? So we've got talk, trade, give, attack, spell. Trade does not need to be in here twice. We're going to make this trade actually the leave button, and we're just going to remove the last two, at least until I can think of something else. And let's, yes. Thank you. That's terrible, Windows, really? You scheduled an update for in the middle of my stream. That's just horrendous. I really, really don't understand why you have to do this. That's dumb. Alright, well, if my stream turns off at, what, 8:37, we'll know exactly who the culprit is at the very least. Oh, Windows 10. You so silly. Specifically in that you are trying to take control of my computer in ways I do not really appreciate. So let's get these buttons to actually say what they should, because right now their text does not match their names. So there we go. Talk, trade, give. You say attack. Spell should continue to say spell, and this should now say leave. There we go. And I kind of want to keep the same paradigm I have going for all of my other UIs, because it just makes life so much easier. So what I'm going to do is we are going to create a new script. And for now it's probably going to stay empty. But right now we have a character UI script, sorry, a character window script. Ooh, a combat UI script. I don't like the naming differences between these. I really don't like the differences in naming. I could call it a combat window. I could call it a character UI. I kind of like the term window better. So let's hop in real, wow. Everybody wants to update this morning. OBS just popped up, said, hey, I want to update too. No, OBS, later. Not now, I'm kind of in the middle of something. Okay, combat UI. Let's swap this to combat window. And before anyone notices that there, A, is an extra CS, and B, that inside of this file, ooh, I just realized a lot of people use a combat UI class. I actually need to hop in and probably do this the hard way. So, yes, thank you. Everywhere that says combat UI, we're just going to pass it a, ooh, that's a few places. We're just going to pass it a replace with combat window. Match the casing and the whole word probably. And I'm just going to blast through these replacements real quick. Just because I want to ensure that everything in here matches, looks right, does what it's supposed to do, all that good stuff. Okay, cool. That should be all of them. Save all. Now, the one worry I have, let's take our NPC UI and dump that down here. And since we've now got that captured, I just want to make sure that my combat window didn't break terribly. It looks like it didn't for the most part. Combat delay time looks like it's a bizarre number, so let's fix that. But aside from that, characters, opponents, it looks like everything's here, as it should be. Let's just quickly take a peek at, say, the submit button. Is that still here? Yep, combat window.submit spell action. Great. Finally, we're going to do a quick rename here. It is now the combat window, and hopefully that'll update to our prefab. Please. Nope, that wants to come in as a different prefab altogether. Alright, fine. I can delete the old prefab. And the party, I believe, needs a copy of this new prefab. Sweet. Okay, so we've got a combat window, we've got a character window. The NPC UI will actually be an NPC window. Just normalizing names so that when we do finally start looking around and seeing all the bits and pieces that we've made, we can actually fully understand what we are working with every time. Alright, so the party needs a new template, right? We've got our combat UI, we've got the game over UI. We now need, I also can't help but notice that we don't have a, how does the oh, I know how the party doesn't have this. Okay, it's inside each of the characters. The characters understand how to open their own inventory. The party has no idea how to handle inventory opening, and that's fine. So we have our combat UI. I'm going to go so far as to tack in our NPC UI template. And pop, there it is. Cool. When we say, so right now we have a begin and end combat. I need something similar here. I need specifically a an NPC window. Here's my character window. Here's my combat window. Did my NPC window like not make it to the... Oh, did I not make the script? Is that what happened? It doesn't look like I made the script. That looks like that is the case. Sure enough, I just haven't. Okay. You are called the NPC window. So window essentially denotes something that is its own canvas, has its own set of controls, commands, and all of this other good stuff. And it needs to be able to not only be kind of a self-contained piece, but also I need to be able to probably open and close it somehow and have some other ways of bringing up and hiding this UI. Yeah, thank you, game. Start NPC interaction, and then just to match the other style here, end NPC interaction, because there are some things that need to happen pretty much every time when we do this. For example, when we start an NPC interaction, we need to turn off our input. And then we need to turn it back on afterwards. Pretty common stuff there. Also, when we start an NPC interaction, we have this game object. We need to replicate it, dump it in the scene, and then return the handle that we have to the NPC window. So we have to return game object, instantiate. This is our NPC UI template, and I'm just going to get a component off of it, specifically that NPC window. And for now, that's all I'm going to do, right? Nice, simple, clean setup. Sorry, I can't help but notice that I'm duplicating more data that's inside the party. I'm going to leave it for now, but it's going to bug the heck out of me until I fix it. So at some point in the future, I'm going to have to clean that up. Window. Also, I can't help but notice that I actually pushed the NPC template into here. I'm not actually going to do that. Party does not contain a definition for begin. Oh, did I say begin here and start here? That's not good. So what I tend to do, and I know I just broke and fixed my own paradigm, but usually it's begin and end versus start and stop, right? You want to think of your verbs, and especially function verbs, in terms of things that you want to take care of when it comes to matching specifically. So when I say begin asynchronous read, I don't want to then stop the asynchronous read. I usually, if I'm waiting for it to finish, I'll call end asynchronous read. And if I want to kill it prematurely, that's when I'll use a stop command. Versus if I say start asynchronous read, then stop would still, stop might actually still be the early kill. But it seems weird to have a start and an end, as opposed to begin and end, and stop as an abort call. Okay. So our NPC window needs some information. Specifically, and I actually need to put the, where is it, the scripted NPC on one of the nodes in our scene. So let me just undo my okay, I was about to say, I really hope it didn't put a node out there. I know it can do silly things sometimes. Oh, wait, I don't want that though. I want the grid. And no weird things? No weird things. Okay, cool. Grid. Hey, grid. It's a little difficult to see with the way the UI kind of slams into everything, but let's just say, for now, I'm actually going to put it right in front of my face, so all I have to do is just walk forwards, and I can see my NPC. In the future, obviously, I'm not going to be quite so lazy. Let's see, where's my party? And where is your starting position? Also, you're facing south. And where is the grid? There's the grid node you're attached to. So let's go south a node. Alright. This is where we want our NPC, our scripted NPC to end up. So the NPC needs a template, which means that we need to figure out how to stash a character with more information than a standard monster on it. So that means what? Well, okay, the obvious first thing is that we need some kind of prefab that's going to be our NPC. So let's just, let's not hop back to that. Let's grab, I've got a ton of models inside here. We've got this like fairy. Why don't we use the fairy for our start setup? So, sure, yeah, a pink fairy, great, lovely. Actually, yeah, let's just do this like this for now. Models. Here we go, prefabs. Now, this is not a monster. This is going to be different. So, NPCs is going to get its own folder. Mostly because I don't want to handle looking through all the monsters to find an NPC. It just seems kind of silly. Alright, so we've got our prefab. That's easy enough to pass along. Oh crud. Except that I've lost the grid node. Oh, there it is. I know it wasn't too far down. Alright, so we've got our NPC template, so we need to instantiate that. So the scripted NPC will say, great, we've got the window. Now we need to actually create our NPC. One moment. Alright, let's instantiate that. You guys are quiet tonight. I know there's a number of you in there too. I just have a quiet, lurky chat today. Well, I guess it doesn't quite matter so much when you guys are quiet whether or not I managed to finish. I almost got my chat showing up in stream, and I say almost because I'm still missing a piece of the puzzle somewhere. But of course, because I've missed that, it's no big deal. Because everybody's nice and quiet today. Here's our NPC. I actually don't know why I'm grabbing a reference to this, but for now, I'll just keep the reference, because one never knows. Okay, first thing I can't help but notice is how far away this person is. NPC.transform.position. Let's set your position correctly. Specifically, let's see here. I think it's the combat UI that handles the positioning. Sorry, not the combat UI, the combat window that handles the positioning of new monsters as they enter a fight. And as it turns out, that looks correct. Here is this center node is essentially what I want more than anything else. So your position is going to be equal to party.instance. So it's going to be equal to the position that the characters are standing plus, I see. There we go. If I ever have more than one grab of the party singleton, it's just easier to simplify it down to a reference that gets then passed around. Where's the rotation part? There we go. Want to make sure this rotation also gets set so that they're looking at the player, because otherwise, obviously, silly things happen. So, I take my step forwards, and hey, look, there's our fairy. Sweet. I'm actually kind of tempted to bring her a bit closer, but at the same time, I feel like she's standing actually perfectly on the link. Yeah, she really is. So she's not that far off. It's just a matter of the fact that the game camera kind of is zoomed out slightly. It does make me wonder if I should do something during NPC interactions, such as grab our field of view and center it in, so that we can now, we may not be able to see as much going on, but when we change field of view, which Mental has like popped into chat, this is what I get for like not keeping a perfect eye on chat. Mental's like, just change field of view. Yeah, you're right. Changing field of view would do the trick, right? It brings the character into focus. You know, if I bring it into 30-ish degrees, that feels pretty good, especially from before. 60, this keeps a lot of stuff in sight, but at the same time, maybe not the prettiest thing ever. Let's see here. Just to quickly poke around at some of the controls and some of the stuff in here. Rotation, movement. I'm going to put camera. And specifically in here, field of view. And then we're also going to have a default field of view. And then we have our NPC field of view and maybe a combat field of view eventually. For now, I'm going to leave out the combat one, but it's not exactly hard. So here's our current field of view target. You know what? I don't need current in there. So I'm just going to leave field of view target as its own thing. Alright, game starts. This starts. Field of view target is going to be, actually, yeah, you know what? I think field of view target needs to be private. So the field of view target is going to be equal to the default when the game starts. When you begin an NPC interaction, we're going to set the field of view target to the NPC field of view. And then when we're done, our field of view target is going to go back to the default field of view. Ta-da! Mental's got it already tossed into chat. And it is times like this that I do kind of wish I had that chat moniker working. No matter what, even if our input isn't enabled. So we have input, we have resting, positional stuff. The other thing I want to do in here, right at the very end, is I know the party has a camera. So I'm going to grab a reference, public camera, party camera. So I can find it easily when it does pop up. There it is. Party cam. Yeah. And also just so I have kind of a set, easy way to control this. Let's see here. Begin, end combat, field of view, targets. When game starts, camera dot. There we go. You know what? We're just going to do this down here at the very bottom. So we have the party camera, the field of view. Excuse me. We're just always going to lerp towards that target. So from our current field of view, oh, I don't need a current field of view because I have the camera's field of view. That makes a ton of sense. So our field of view target, oh, but the field of view target itself, nope, that's correct. Never mind. It's going to lerp between party camera dot field of view towards the target field of view, or the field of view target. Close enough. No, that should be time.delta time times how many seconds do we want it to take to transition? Let's say 2 seconds will be our field of view transition time. Here's our transition speed. All right, party, let's see. We have all these field of view parameters now. Our default will be, let's say the default's 50 for the NPC view. We'll pull it into something like 30. And then eventually, not even eventually, let's do it right now. For combat, we'll pull it out to 60. So when we begin combat, obviously, our field of view target is going to be equal to the combat field of view. And I'm just going to put this at the top next to our own personal variable modification. And when we end combat, the field of view target is going to be equal to the default again. Sweet. Alright, so here we are. We walk into it, and you can see it transitions up and forwards. Now leave obviously doesn't work quite yet, but we can get into a fight, and getting into a fight should, let's take a quick rest. Come on, people. Whoa. I forgot to set the field of view for the fight. Whoops. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. It's a little hard to see because I was bouncing back and forth so rapidly, but now I get my fight on where, okay, we're gonna firebolt. Ooh, I need to make that that bit of UI larger. You'll notice the size shrinks very significantly the moment that I get to that part of the UI. Alright guys, come on, let's kill things. Rapido. I kind of need a button to press and hold to make combat go faster. That or a setting, like when you're in the Unity editor, just go quickly. I don't actually care a ton probably about what happens in combat. And I'm a little less worried about my characters dying because I'm in editor, so I probably am not paying a ton of attention to things. Hey, we got one down. We need to add a shader to that to make it like disappear outwards somehow. How does an animation curve work with lerping? It pretty much is a lerp function where when you give it T, instead of the standard, oh look, you know, hey, and there's our field of view change. Instead of the standard setup where it says, you know, it's this linear interpolation between points, you can actually generate the mathematical curve. And then when you put in T, it'll give you the value between 0 and 1 for that graph. And what that value essentially does is it tells you how far between your lerp points you should be. So it's not great for our situation because you do need to walk end to end for it to be useful. So I wouldn't exactly use it for field of view, but for something like the party movement, you'll actually note that I do use it for that. The party has a curve for its movement, and you can see this is how we arrive at our point. So we leave somewhat suddenly, and then we ease into our final point. Versus I could have something like a linear or a flat value. There's a bunch of ways to do it. This kind of felt the best. It felt like it clicked the most often. And there we go. Once again, we walk, we run into the NPC, and oh look, NPC. And it zooms in. At least enough that the NPC is kind of the primary focus of our setup here. Her wings are moving very erratically. It definitely is making me wonder if her animator is going too quickly. Interesting. I don't see her animator moving. Okay, no, there it is. No, it seems to be moving at a standard speed. I'm curious what happens if I slow it down, how it looks. It still doesn't look all that great. It looks a little bit better this way. I gotta say, I like her wings not kind of flitting so quickly. You know, doing something like that would obviously not be ideal. But also something like this is, like, I kind of want the two extremes, right? I either want her flitting very quickly, maybe not rising and falling so quickly as well, but the flitting very quickly with the wings is a nice effect for somebody who is moving slowly. So this is kind of, this is standard. I'm tempted to slow it down ever so slightly. And I think I'm going to leave it that way. Just for my own, I don't know, enjoyment. Guys, unfortunately, I am pretty much out of time. Mental, when you access curves, it essentially gives you the current value of the curve at that point. So if I have a linear a line just from 0 to 1, and I say, what's the value at 0.5, it's going to give you the curve halfway up. And so yeah, that's going to give that 0.5 value. So yeah, that's exactly what it does. It's really easy to use. I absolutely adore using the animation curves when possible. Obviously, easing libraries are going to have a lot more options, but I've found so far that I don't need easing libraries because those animation curves tend to be a good control for the most part. Alright guys, it's been great. I do have to take off for the day. It is a good start on NPC systems. We need to come up with, or I need to come up with, royal we here. We've got, so talking, obviously, we need words, descriptions, things like that. Ways to manipulate the text on the screen. Ways to cast certain spells. I might need to go in and mark certain spells as combat only, so that I can filter them out of things like the party view. Obviously, it makes very little sense to click on the cleric, click on this, and be able to cast Firebolt, because the only targets available are the other party members. Right? It says pick a target. Okay, I'm gonna blow up my own warrior for no reason. Like, that makes no sense. Why would I do that? So I'm thinking that it's probably in my best interest to remove non-combat spells from certain things. That is also included in the NPC interaction. Until you actually start fighting the NPC, I don't really want to bother with a ton of that. So that's one part. We need to finish all the interactions with the NPC, right? Attacking, leaving, talking, trading things, if they have an inventory to trade. To be able to mark an NPC as not having any inventory is also something I want to do. Just kind of make sure that NPCs don't have that quality of being able to hold things or being able to sell things if you give them things. Just so you can't barter with everybody in the game, because that'd be a little weird. What else? NPC interactions are pretty big, so I want to make sure I get this right. This is going to be something that requires a lot of thought, especially when it comes to the knowledge database, figuring out what each person knows. I don't think I'm going to use an actual database, but having a giant text JSON blob might be a good start. That at least will let me fill in each individual person with their own individual lines. Because NPCs are going to be very individualized. I don't want, all my NPCs to say the same thing when certain situations arise. I'd like slight, subtle things to come up when you're talking about different characters. Two characters may know the same, third NPC in the world, but they may think very different things about him, and I want to be able to represent that in the information. So I need to keep that in mind when designing this. Alright guys, thank you again for joining me. I'll be sure to push this one to the YouTube channel as quickly as possible. I know I've definitely been actually happy that I've been able to keep up with that for the most part. So all the videos on my YouTube channel are this stream, and they are a decent amount of the work from start till now of the game stream. I think only one video has like some weird copyright stuff that I'm waiting to get resolved. But aside from that, I think we've hit today's day number 31 that I've been working on this project. And so at video number 31, it definitely is exciting to be able to kind of push past my usual barriers of games only being interesting for a week or two. So, and part of that is you guys. So thank you very much for joining me today. For those of you who are here for the first time, I highly encourage you, hit the follow button below. It not only shows support, but it also lets you know when I'm online, so you can continue to check out the stream, watch the game progress, and if you're into game programming and learning programming, hopefully just the constant stream of consciousness that comes out of my mouth is enough to maybe learn something off of. I know I tend to use as many of the Unity tools as possible. Pretty much the only thing I'm not doing on stream right now is some of the content generation. I am finishing some features offline, so every once in a while I will finish something and not stream that. And content, lots of the content generation. So we're talking art, we're talking text, we're talking level design. Most of that does not happen on the stream right now, mostly because my hour streams in the morning, I like to focus on the programming, the adding of new features, getting pieces of information added to the game such that we can keep it moving forwards feature-wise. And then eventually we'll kind of have to transition into content mode when most of the features that we want are done. So that's how it's going. Thank you again, guys. I will be back tomorrow, same time, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I'll see, hopefully, most of you guys then. Take care. Have a good day.